Cutting across to the Lok Sabha right now where the Finance Minister is speaking.
And therefore there will be no floor test. And in the abstract, somebody will say the rule is floor test. Now, as far as Uttarakhand is concerned, my young friend Sushmita just now very eloquently said, what was the material? Let's not go into the rest of the material. I'll only point out three materials. On the 27th midnight, when the Council of Ministers met and decided to advise the President, let's forget other factors. You had the first material that 27 MLAs, as you said, asked for a division. The Speaker says, I don't give a division. Everybody can theoretically write an essay or give a speech saying floor test. But what if the Speaker refuses to have a floor test? Dada, let's not create a constitutional monstrosity that the rule is floor test, but what if the Speaker refuses to test the floor? What if the Speaker wrongly counts and wrongly tests the floor? What if the Speaker then says, I will change the characteristic of the floor and then test it? In such a situation, what is to be done? I'll just elaborate the argument. What was the material before the President? The first material is 27 MLAs asked for a division. The Speaker doesn't give it. 36 MLAs immediately write to the Governor, we have voted against the bill. The minutes of the Assembly record, a division is asked, but bill is declared passed. Now, second, between this monstrosity that took place on the 18th, that majority fails the budget, but the Speaker declares it passed, you have a video clipping, and the forensic examination says it is true, of the Chief Minister indulging in horse trading. The third, that 28th March was 3 days away from 1st April. The Speaker has not certified the appropriation bill, the Governor has not given assent. And on the 1st of April, the state would have been plunged into a constitutional crisis where there was no budget. And how did the Speaker on the 28th give a certificate? If you check up the record, after the 27th recommendation and the President's rule, while criticism was being made, I wrote an article and put it on my blog saying, a state without a budget. There can't be a bigger constitutional crisis than this. And then some wise people realized that this is a mistake we have made. The Speaker has not even certified the budget. I said in my blog that till I write this blog and put it on post, the Speaker has not certified the bill because the bill doesn't exist. So within minutes, the bill was signed by the Speaker on 28th. और बैक डेट में 19 की डेट डाल के गवर्नर को 28 तारीख की दोपहर को भेज दिया. Now the material is, when President's rule is imposed, that majority is saying we failed the budget, horse trading is going on, and you have a state without a budget. Within 72 hours, you will have be plunged into a constitutional crisis. The certificate of the Speaker comes much later. Till today, the Governor has not given assent. Now, Madam, let us talk in real terms. 356 is an unpopular provision. What are the basic factors? Democracy and federalism are the essence of Indian Constitution. Democracy means rule by majority. If majority fails the budget, can a government continue even for a minute? The answer is no. What about the institute? The answer is no. the MLAs may be disqualified. The answer to the 10th schedule is the MLAs will be disqualified, but the government has to resign because it has lost the budget. Both things have to follow. That's the answer. That's the constitutional provision. Now, democracy is ruled by majority. The argument is that let us see the dangerous consequences of the argument. Courts have no jurisdiction to review the decision of the Speaker. Supposing a vote of confidence is lost, let us assume a vote of confidence is lost and the Speaker says, I believe that the vote is passed. So majority is declared a minority, minority is declared a majority. I will give you 3-4 illustrations in the Uttarakhand case. The rule by majority is defied because a failed budget is declared passed. The argument is you should have had a floor test. Well, a floor test is a division. The Speaker refuses to have a division. He refuses to test the floor. And today the argument is go back to the same Speaker and have another floor test. Why did the Speaker refuse to have a floor test on the 18th? Because you didn't have the majority. What, Madam, the questions which have to be answered is, what if the Speaker refuses to have a floor test? You can in the abstract say, Bomai has said floor test is the rule, but the Speaker is refusing to have a floor test. The second is, the Speaker wrongly manipulates the floor by wrongly counting. The third situation is that the Speaker adjourns the House and then changes the character of the floor and says, now let us have a floor test under a new floor. In such a case, under Article 212, the courts can't go into it. But in such a case, Mr. Saugat Roy, I repeat what I told you earlier, the actions of the Speaker can constitute a breakdown of the constitutional machinery. Because the Constitution envisages rule by majority, not rule by a manipulated majority or a wrongly counted majority.
He allows, I have no objection.
Therefore, to say, have a floor test. We are on a moral high ground, Mr. Gogai says, we wanted a floor test. But your Speaker refused to have a floor test on the 18th. That's the answer. Then he manipulated the floor. Then he changed the nature of the floor. And then you say, oh, because it is being held to be a breakdown of the constitutional machinery, the centre has posed a threat. So my respectful submission, Madam, is, and I'm not going into grey areas like horse trading. Now, this is the answer to your Article 356. Now, let me tell you, Article 356 has had a checkered history. And with respect, the Supreme Court is always binding. But there are many times where you, 50 years or 30 years later, you test the Supreme Court judgments. Mr. Satpathy raised a very important point. Today in 2016, let us test the 1977 view. The 1977 view of 356 was of the Supreme Court. If a party has lost majority in a Lok Sabha election, it automatically means that people have expressed a no confidence in the state assemblies of that party. 9 state assemblies were dissolved. And today in 2016, if you discuss the state of Rajasthan ruling of 1977, most people would agree and jurists would agree that it was probably a ruling which requires to be revisited. Because the Lok Sabha election decided otherwise, it automatically means that confidence in the assemblies is lost. And 356. Now I'll come to give you a second example. Bomai's case correctly laid down the principles. But what about the application in Bomai's case? In Uttar Pradesh, a disputed structure, as a result of some action, fell down or was demolished. So the governments of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Himachal Pradesh should also be dismissed and 356 was upheld. 3 राज्यों में जहां कुछ नहीं हुआ, बोमाई केस का एप्लीकेशन यह था कि उन 3 राज्यों में 356 को जस्टिफाई कर दिया क्योंकि एक चौथे राज्य में एक घटना हुई है। आज 2016 में अगर आप बोमाई केस का एप्लीकेशन टेस्ट करो तो my respectful submission is that courts have also shown tendency to be carried with the times. One of the cardinal principles of judicial independence is that courts should never follow the ballot box. But it has happened. 77 judgment can raise questions. The Bommai judgment in its application raises questions. I've told you what has been said in those. Only history will test the correctness of those judgments. But let us see how my friend from the left parties raised a question. Today, Mr. Gagoi was saying 356 is very dangerous. The second time when it was imposed, first time in Pepsu, was against the left front government. Against the Namboodiripad government. You should see read the correspondence between Pandit Nehru and Mrs. Indira Gandhi. One was the Prime Minister, one was the Congress President. She was pressing for it and he was distinctively uncomfortable. It's a published correspondence. In Punjab, 3 times Akali Dal government was dismissed under 356. You were in power. And when militancy came, the militants used to give this as one of the reasons कि आपको ballot box के through तो राज करने नहीं देंगे. What happened in Haryana? कि एक पूरी की पूरी सरकार लेकर चले गए थे भजनलाल जी. कश्मीर, आपके आज साथी हैं डॉक्टर फारूक अब्दुल्ला, उनकी सरकार थी. उसके स्थान पर गुल मोहम्मद शाह की सरकार बना दी और उससे कश्मीर का पूरा इंस्टेबिलिटी आरंभ हुई. तो इसलिए एनटीआर के केस में क्या हुआ? तो लेट अस नॉट what would any government have done in, let us say, Uttarakhand, where the speaker says that I am converting a majority into a minority? So a lot can be argued, let the courts decide. Now today I am on a limited question, irrespective of whichever way the courts decide. Whether they revive one government or they create a new government or they extend, President's rule continues, the ordinance has to be made into an act, the appropriation ordinance, because what happened on the 18th of March, there is a cloud. And therefore, expenditure from 1st April has to be ratified. That's the necessity. And that is why we have sought that appropriation for a period of 4 months. That's a constitutional necessity. And I would urge my friends in the Congress party and others also who have reservations and 2 views about 356, that this is a constitutional necessity. It should really be approved.